Right. And so this was really fun to think about. And it's fun in a couple ways. One, because this is sort of an emergent, well, no, biosafety has been along for a long time, but this is an emerging space, and how we think about this is in regards to like what we're doing with Evo. So actually, there is a list of viruses that are on the biosafety watch list, right? And so we actually specifically excluded those sequences from the training of Evo. And then once Evo2 was trained, we actually put those sequences in to see if it could recognize these pathogens, and it could not. So we were really excited that we had, done our due diligence in ensuring that these biosafety features were not included. We also, and then the other piece is, we've had a lot of ethical discussions on what does it mean to create new sequences? What does it mean to create new species? How does that fit into the overall um, environmental, what is the environmental impact of that? And so even with Eva 1, we had a piece on how we think about this generation of new sequences, synthetic sequences, and how it can change the biodiversity of our systems. And so that was, we spent a lot of time really trying to think about and pulling on experts to help us think about, first of all, in the safety piece, what are these specific pathogens that we want to be sure that we cannot generate, or we want to be sure that is not included in the training information for our model. So that was one piece. And then the second piece was the sort of the equity piece, and ensuring that, from the human genome sequence aspect, we weren't just developing a model that was going to benefit a particular population over another. So those were kind of the two thought pieces behind that. And so it was, it was a lot of teamwork, a lot of diversity in our teams, kind of pulling together and thinking about what this would mean. But we excluded, the pathogens was the biggest piece that we worked on excluding, right? Um, and we just wanted to be sure that, because it is open source, right? The entire model is open source. The training data is open source. Everything is open source. So we wanted to be sure that we did our best to ensure that it would be used responsibly, and we did our best to ensure that it would be that biosafety was a top concern.
Well, I think everyone thanks you and your team for doing that, because I'm sure no one wants a super generative model that can create super viruses. But that's the part
Exactly.
I didn't fully understand that part, and maybe this part we you can tell me, oh, okay, you need to go back and kind of really look into why this is the case. What I didn't understand was, if this model is generative, meaning it can create kind of new genomes, why can't it create like a viral genome that infects humans if you didn't train it on that? Is it because there's some is it because the viral genome is different enough? I guess there's something different enough about it that, since it was not trained on that, this model hasn't learned that sort of nuance. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, you can think about it that way. Yes. So because it wasn't trained on that, right? It's not learning exactly the specific traits of those pathogens, or those aspects of that section. So, specifically, there are specific traits about these pathogens that we just didn't want the model to learn. And so by excluding those, so remember, we're using all of these different species to train the model. And by excluding particular species, or these specific pathogens, it's not learning that sequence. Now, could it by chance develop these? It probably could by chance, but we wanted to do our best to ensure it wasn't learning that to begin with.